Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maryam. If it's your first time here. So I'm currently recording this video on August 3rd, 2024. So I've been in Ottawa for a little over 10 months now, and I thought maybe the perfect time to just do a Vancouver Ottawa comparison, just based off of my experiences living in Vancouver and now living in Ottawa, for anyone that might be interested. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So the first point would of course have to be rentals. Like, if you know anything about the Vancouver real estate market, it's insane. Prices are insanely high. So for instance, I'm just going to give you like a snapshot of Ottawa versus Vancouver. I currently live in downtown Ottawa with a 1-bedroom plus den. I'm in the den right now. And I pay $22.75 per month, and I rent out the parking spot because I don't have a vehicle for $150 per month. So I end up paying $21.25 every month. This same apartment, let's even remove the den, I'll just say a 1-bedroom 1-bathroom apartment in downtown Vancouver will cost you between $2,500 and $2,800 per month, and it might not even come with a parking space. It most certainly probably wouldn't. So maybe not certainly and probably, but it probably wouldn't come with a parking space, and that is without the den. So just the comparison is like, you see a very stark difference between that. Another thing I would also want to point out is the damage deposit versus last month's rent. In Ontario, they do last month's rent. So once you sign your lease, you pay a first and last month's rent. But in Vancouver, they don't do last month's rent. They do damage deposit, which is half of your monthly rent, and then that would go towards maybe scarf marks and stuff on the wall, or things that were damaged that the landlord would have to pay. And if everything is in perfect condition, they give you back that amount with interest. So I think this is really important to know when you're moving from like British Columbia to Ontario, because you know you have to have that money like set aside, because you're basically paying 2 months rent at once, which was something I didn't know, and I wish I did, but luckily I had that margin to cover it. Another thing I would like to mention is central air conditioner. For reference, the apartment I live in was built in 2018, and it has a central air conditioner. Like similar apartments, even up until like, I think I saw one that was built 2016 and it had central air conditioner as well. In Vancouver, I lived in the Brentwood building, and that was built in 2020, and it didn't have central air conditioner. And it was a common theme I was seeing. There were a lot of like fairly new builds, like a 2020 build is the new build, and that didn't have air conditioner. So maybe it's just a like contractor thing, builder thing, or maybe there's some like laws that maybe enforce people in Ontario to do that they don't in Vancouver and in British Columbia. But that was something that I was like, this is really great because it gets really hot during the summer. It's just kind of like a preference thing. A lot of apartment buildings here don't have mirrors in the lifts, and which is just funny because I like to take my little like outfit photos like in the mirror when I'm like going out and stuff, which is not something I've been able to do. Even in the houses that, in the apartment buildings that I viewed before I finally landed on this one, they didn't have that either. I was just recently in a friend's apartment building that had a mirror, and that was the first one. Like even in workplaces and stuff, you don't really see mirrors, and I just thought that was interesting because in Vancouver it's kind of like, it's just standard practice. You enter like a lift, there's almost most definitely a mirror there. Then next I will say is food. Honestly, I've not seen a big difference in food prices like in Ottawa compared to Vancouver. The only difference I would say, or a couple of differences I have seen, is that sales taxes are higher in Ontario, with it being 13%, and in British Columbia sales taxes are 12%. But then when it comes to food, you don't really see that play out a whole lot. I can't really speak on the restaurant side because I don't go out to eat a whole lot. I don't order and stuff like that. I mostly cook, which kind of leads into like the second point I was talking about. Because I'm on a keto diet, I prefer to make a lot of my foods myself, so I know what is going in. But I found that it's harder to get like specialty foods here. I have friends that are gluten-free, and the few times they do go and eat, like they don't really have a lot of like gluten-free options. Or even in the grocery stores, like it's not that common. Like in Vancouver, like there are people on like paleo, there are people on Atkins, there are people on keto, like it's so easy to find like keto options. There are keto bakeries there. Like it's because a lot of people kind of have like specialty diets, so it's a lot easier. So that's something I have noticed. Like I do have to order from the store I order from in Vancouver. I have to order from them all the way to Ontario for me to get like the foods I need, like my breads and stuff, things I can really order off of Amazon and stuff. Weather is, obviously I'm moving from BC, that is known for like its beautiful weather because it's not as cold as like majority of the rest of Canada. It does like rain a whole lot. As I've come here, I have noticed that a lot of people did tell me that the last winter, which was in 2023, that I experienced here wasn't as cold as it usually is. So I guess I got lucky, but obviously it was still a lot colder than I've experienced in Vancouver. But something I found was that because it snows a lot more here, the city is kind of more equipped to take care of the snow once it comes. They clear the roads relatively fast, things move. I don't use the SkyTrain, the LRT here because I live relatively close to work. I just walk to work, so I don't know like for the bus system how that like affects it. But in terms of like walking on the road, like ice and stuff like that, things go like really smoothly, and I'm really glad about that because it really helps you to enjoy the cold when you're not struggling in the snow. And something I found was that I really quite enjoy the cold, and so that has been very like, it's been a fascinating turn of like events for me because moving to central Canada, which is where Ottawa is, I kind of thought what I would struggle with the most would be the cold, like, but because I'm cold averse, you might say, but something I've really come to enjoy it, and I'm very grateful for that because one of your biggest fears, like just being quashed by it being the complete opposite of what you thought it would be, is exciting to say the least. If you've ever been to British Columbia, you know that one of the things British Columbia has for going for it is just how beautiful it is, like the scenery, the landscape. And it's because there is so much like geographical diversity. You have like mountains that you can hike on, mountains that you can ski on, you can go to Tofino to surf, you can go to Squamish to climb rocks, and it's relatively easy to like go from these places. They're not like super close to each other in BC, but the transit is so that you can actually move from these places with fairly little hassle. I'm going to get on transit systems a little bit later, but I thought I would touch on that point. Ottawa, for the most part, is relatively flat, I would say. Like, it's not as flat as maybe like Saskatchewan or something, but it is kind of flat. There are a bunch of there are water bodies around here, but you don't really have access to it. I was recently at the NCR River House, which is kind of like a heritage building surrounded by a river, and you don't unless you go into the water. It's not like sand water. I'll post a picture and you can see what I'm talking about here. So you kind of have that barrier between you and the water unless you're like completely immersed in the water. So yeah, and I love going to hike, but unless you go to like everything you want to do, they'll be like, go to the Quebec side, and I'm like, I don't have a vehicle, it's not that convenient for me to just go there. Or you want to go hiking or do other things, they're like, oh, it's just right outside of Ottawa, but it's not easy to get to without a vehicle. So a lot of things are kind of, it's more vehicle centric. The moment you start living like the downtown area, you kind of have to rely on a vehicle a lot more than you would if you lived in Vancouver, because things are more integrated and more connected just with the transit system. I have a few points that I want to make on the lifestyle. The first would be the corporate work culture. Most people here are like government workers, they're politicians, they're diplomats, they're foreign dignitaries. So you see a lot more, you see that in the air. Like Vancouver has this laid back culture, maybe because of the population skews a bit younger, so it's just like people in like athleisure wear, which I don't love. I kind of prefer people to dress up a little bit, but it's just more laid back. People with their Stanley Cup, they have the Stanley Cup in this hand, they have a Starbucks drink in the other hand, and just like chatting and laughing about life and stuff like that. There's just something in the air that just seems like nothing is so high stress. Something about like Ottawa is that, I don't know, there's this, people have like stoic looks on their faces. Like I'm walking to work and then you see people's faces, there's like this tense, there's a bit of like tenseness, is that a word, in the air that I noticed that like it's not quite there in Vancouver. I'm not sure what that is or why that is. Maybe because people's jobs have a lot more, would I say, at stake. Like there's maybe it's just the proximity to power and things like happening and all of those things. But it's neither here nor there. I don't feel a certain way about it, but it's definitely there for sure. Then I touched on the dress culture a bit. I'm a person that I like to dress up, which you might be looking at me and be like, yeah, right. But technically, like really on my day-to-day basis, I'm going to work. I don't really like the sweatpant culture, which was something I railed against quite heavily when I was in Vancouver. Like I would have discussions with my friends and I'm like, why don't people dress up like they used to anymore? Like everything is just this athleisure wear. Like you're not going to the gym, like put on proper clothes. And that was something I've really come to love about Ottawa. Maybe it's the heavy presence of government workers. People are a bit more put together. Like you walk on the streets and people are like in suits, people are like dressed up, the ladies look so beautiful, the men look so smart and handsome. There's just something about it that I quite love. So yeah, there's that. And I think it's kind of, I expected the opposite because Vancouver has like fashionistas. I think Vancouver has like the extreme. The fashionistas are like, well, you look funky and like social media ready, but would you wear this to work kind of thing? And then what I've come to see is that people actually dress for everyday, like realistic wear kind of thing. Then the active lifestyle in Vancouver, I think this is based off of the fact that Vancouver has so much outdoor activities that maybe don't even necessitate you spending money or a little bit of money, but it's very outdoor focused. People are very active, like they're biking around a park, they're biking around Stanley Park or English Bay or whatever, or the seawall. Like it's very active, a lot of activities. People are like, Saturday, it's like, let's go hiking, let's go this, let's go to Tofino and surf, or let's go to Sunshine Coast. Like it's very outdoorsy. And in contrast, like when I first landed in Ottawa, I don't want this to sound wrong or come off the wrong way, not the way I intend, but I was very surprised by how heavyset people are here. And maybe it's just because of the contrast between just coming from Vancouver and then landing.
Low battery.
My laptop is low. And then landing in Ottawa and just seeing that stark difference. It might also be as a result of like a lot of people are government workers, a lot of that like involves desk jobs. So maybe people just live a lot more sedentary lifestyles than people do in Vancouver. People in Vancouver are a lot more health conscious, which kind of plays a role in like the kind of foods you see. Like there's so many specialty foods because people care a lot more about like, you know, what they put into their body, the quality of it and stuff like that. And people are just generally more active. So that's definitely something I've seen here. Like I've been on one hike since I've been here. I went to Gatineau Park on the Quebec side. I'm looking to do a lot more of that. Yeah, if you have a car and you're willing to host somebody, text me. I'll say the dating environment. Like I was having someone from my school. I went to the University of British Columbia, and one of our staffers, she came here for a conference, and so I met with her for dinner. And one of the things she was talking about was that I was talking about the dating scene here. I was like, everyone in like my age range, they are usually maybe like Hill staffers. By that I mean like Parliament Hill staffers. They work for the government, or like it's usually somewhere around that. Like someone always works for like the government or something. And then so I was talking to her about it, and she was like, the good part is that they're already like pre-vetted by the government, so you know at least on the very first level, like they're safe, like to go on a date when you don't have that anxiety. And so I was like, you know what, you have a point. So they have that pre-vetting process like in Ottawa that maybe Vancouver doesn't have, because maybe they're not government workers. You don't see a lot of government workers in Vancouver. Anyway, then scent-free zones. This was something that's difficult for me because I think perfume is very much a part of like your outfit. Like you dress up, the scent you wear is it's a part of it. So coming here, like in my workplace, you see scent-free zone all over the place. Like they don't want you to wear scented products because people have allergies. They get headaches, they get nausea, they get like irritations from scents and stuff. People are very sensitive. But that's not something I ever came across in Vancouver. So that was very interesting to me. Like even in my church, the church I attend, it's also a scent-free zone. My workplace is a scent-free zone. And I'm like, those are the only two places I go and I can't wear my perfume. And so that's a little bit sad, but obviously I don't want to trigger people's allergies, so I'm just going to respect that. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't like that. Here they use like light rail system on buses. I don't use them a whole lot. I use the bus quite a lot more than I do the LRT, because sometimes when it's like really sunny or something, I don't want to walk to church, because it's about like a 30-minute walk. But like one of the main reasons why I lived in the downtown area and I wanted to get a place in the downtown area was so it's close to work, so I don't have to rely on the train or the buses, because everything I've heard is that it's not reliable, it breaks down quite often, and I found that to be true. And I'm just very grateful that I don't have to rely on it to get back to work, to get to work rather. And it's not as integrated as you would like I don't, the LRT doesn't go far enough. Like from Vancouver, you can go as far as like Commercial Broadway, and then you take a bus to UBC or something. They're like different. You can go to Surrey from Coquitlam, from Port Coquitlam with SkyTrains. I mean, you change a few times, but you can get there with SkyTrain. But here, like everything is fast. It's not as connected. Like you want to go to Whistler, you can take like the bus, like the charter buses, and you go to Whistler. Like things are not as integrated. I can't find the article, but I did read an article like a while back that said Vancouver has like one of the most interconnected like transit systems in the world, and I found that to be true. Like Ottawa is lacking that for sure. So it's almost like, depending on how far you live, like you have to have a vehicle. Like if you're even searching for an apartment or something, you see like maybe on Facebook Marketplace, you see transit score and stuff like that. A lot of apartments, like once they leave the downtown center town area, like that score reduces, because you need a vehicle to accomplish a lot of tasks. So that kind of puts it in the wah-wah for me, because I don't want to get a vehicle right now. This is something I've actually come to love, because once you're in Ottawa, you really feel that presence of French is actually the second official language in Canada. In Vancouver, it's a lot more Anglophones there, and the second predominant language I would say I hear the most often would be Mandarin or and Cantonese. Like so much so that if you're even at the airport, and a lot of signs and posters, even on like provincial websites. Yeah. But here in Ottawa, everything you see is like English and French. Once you go to the Quebec side, it's like French and English. I like that. It's an interesting juxtaposed position. But I think it's also as a result of just the proximity to Quebec. Like I can literally walk to Gatineau. But I really enjoy that, because I think my written French is fine, but my spoken French could use a lot of work. So just being in proximity to people that's their first language or their second language, and they speak it so fluently, like having the options at work to take classes to improve on the language, and like I think that's great. I really do love it. Just being the nation's capital, you have a lot of like the politicians are here representing their different ridings. Like there is a lot more politics in the environment, even just by the number of protests you see. I live like 5 minutes away from Parliament Hill, so a lot of protests kind of like walk by my apartment. Recently, this was, I can't remember the month, I think I'll find that out, but there was like the March for Life, and I was so privileged to be able to attend that, and I was so lucky that I got to do that. So I was working from home that day, so I could only go during my break, and I went there. I'm going to post the picture like right here. It was so nice to see so many people just gather to protect the unborn, and I really, like, it warmed my heart to see just the number of people that came there, and that was so special to see. In July, I also had the great privilege of speaking at the Young Leadership Summit with the National Prayer Breakfast. Like, what an honor. It was just a talk about, I was there with two people that work on the Hill. One was a staffer from the NP, one was the chief of staff for another NP, one was working with the Library of Parliament, and another one worked for the government. And I was there to speak on how my faith influences my work, and how my work influences my faith. And there were a bunch of just young Christians just there to listen to what a life in public service looks like and stuff like that, and to navigate that as a Christian. I thought it was so beautiful. So I really I enjoy politics, unapologetically conservative, and I like that I can be in an environment where I'm so close to how that plays and just what goes on, just being so close to it, having friends that work on the Hill, and just getting to have a lot more of these conversations. I really love that. Vancouver has a very modern design. Like there's a lot of high-rise buildings and stuff like that, but Ottawa has this history to it, so it's a mix of like traditional and modern. I've not seen a lot of cities. I've been to a lot of cities in BC. I've been to Calgary and now Ottawa, and Gatineau. I've not seen a lot of cities that have done like traditional and modern quite like Ottawa. Like you can see Parliament, which is like a bunch of like traditional buildings, the Peace Tower, West Block, all of that, and opposite you will see like a modern architecture, like a building that has like modern architecture, and somehow it just harmonizes and it plays off each other so well. And I think not a lot of cities can do that. Like sometimes you will just walk down like a random street and you see like a signpost up on top of like established like 1867 or something. I'm like, this is as old as Canada. Like it's so beautiful. It's like you're getting a history lesson just like walking through like a street, and I think that is so beautiful. Some of the churches here are so old. Like I love that there's so much history in the city, and you can see that just like walking through. And I really enjoy ornate designs in buildings, so that really, it tickles my fancy. And then I would also say like museums. There are a bunch of, like, being the nation's capital, I mean, it just makes sense that a lot of museums are like concentrated here and in the Gatineau, in the Quebec side. So like it's a lot more than like Vancouver can boast of. So the question of the day is, which do you prefer, rain or snow? So Vancouver rain, Ottawa snow. I don't know where I lie. I'll give my answer in the comment section. Let me know what you would think down in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, have a wonderful day. Bye.